Our rules are simple, but the challenge is great. No shoulder pets, tames that can be carried, or typical boss dinos allowed. That means no Rexes, Therazinos, or any other dinos people normally use in these fights. Equipped with level 150 saddles across the board, our 19 contenders will be backed by the commanding presence of a loyal Uteranus providing that extra boost. No Overseer because the movement speed required to get through the tech cave then chase the Overseer during the fight would shorten our list by a lot. It's important to note that tames in this series aren't typically used during boss battles because of the amount of mutations you need to make them competitive, but all of the dinos competing will have around 23,000 health and 1200% melee. This will give them all a fair shot at defeating at least one of the Guardians. It won't always be feasible to reach these stats depending on the dinos we're using, but I'll let you know the amount of mutations and levels it took in order to get there. You can make the call on if the juice is worth the squeeze based off whatever server settings you're using. A passing score is earned if the dino emerges victorious in the boss battle, showcasing its prowess. A failing score doesn't imply that the dino lacks the potential to triumph. It simply means that at this stage, it may not be the most practical choice. Now let's take a look at our competitor and get into the battles. Triceratops. This boy comes equipped with a fully armored face that greatly reduces damage. The primary role of the trike is usually an early game hauler and a berry and thatch harvester. They usually punch above their weight class because of the reduced damage from the front, but unfortunately, what you're about to see isn't exactly feasible to accomplish in the short term unless you have significantly boosted rates. With 50 base health and melee, I needed 28 mutations and 80 levels to hit these marks. In addition to the face shield, the Triceratops also gets a rivalry buff when fighting big carnivores, and it has a pretty sweet charge attack. Hopping into our first fight with the Gamma Broodmother, I was pumped because I had high hopes for the trike squad. Triceratops might be pretty slow, but they were surprisingly easy to maneuver when in close proximity to the bosses. The first thing I noticed was the rate of attack and total damage dealt from a single attack was pretty abysmal. Even with 1200% damage, these guys just don't pack that much of a punch. They do take a lot less damage than they normally would though, and easily defeated the Gamma Broodmother, earning us our first pass. Heading into the Gamma MEAPpicus arena, my confidence was even higher as he was the only boss I've consistently been able to find success with. I surrounded him easily and the trikes did a really good job of holding him down. The weird thing about this fight was we lost a few of them from one single attack, but every other one that survived took 0 damage. Even with 2 bug trikes, we pulled off a pretty easy win. The Dragon. Even though it's the Gamma Dragon, it has typically been when the wheels fall off and would be a true test for the trikes. Armed with herbivore power and pockets full of veggie cakes, the trike started off pretty strong and actually got the Dragon down to 50% health before he flew away for the first time. After he landed the second time, it was at that point that I discovered the wheels falling off. Now, it's possible to break it, but you have to mount the trikes to do it. It doesn't take any movement, you just have to hop in the saddle, then hop out, and they'll stop the charge. It wasn't bad at first, but it kept happening, and the risk of hopping off your Uti and onto a trike is pretty damn high. I actually pulled it off, but took a shot of flame and came very close to dying, but ultimately, to my surprise, the trikes beat the Gamma Dragon without much trouble besides their charge bug. This win earned us our first 100% Gamma completion of the series. I felt super confident going into the beta boss fights, but wildly worried that the Dragon would be impossible at this difficulty with the lack of DPS from the trikes. This fight against the beta Broodmother actually went surprisingly well. The squad surrounded her pretty easily, and the bulk of the damage we sustained came primarily from the Ranios that would flank. The lack of DPS from the trikes turned out not to be that big of a deal in this fight because they took so little damage from the Broodmother. Veggie Cakes paid huge dividends for the trikes in all of these fights. The Beta Broodmother ate dirt, earning us our 4th pass in a row. Beta MEAPpicus was honestly a piece of cake for these guys. The rock throw did a lot more damage than the Gamma Rock, and it kind of made me feel like it was a little bit of foreshadowing for the Alpha MEAPpicus. The knockback from the big man actually helped the trikes position better, and they easily surrounded him and laid it on thick. His health steadily dropped, and the biggest surprise of the night for me was the tiny amount of damage that the trike sustained in this fight. It was far less than the Gamma MEAPpicus, and I attribute it to better positioning, which had the Gorilla King switching targets pretty frequently. In the end, down went the Beta MEAPpicus, and earned us our 5th pass of the night. This fight, let me tell you, I honestly went into this and completely forgot about the charging bug we experienced during the Gamma Dragon. Every trike had a full stack of veggie cakes, and after the ass whoopings that we just dished out to the Broodmother and the MEAPpicus, I truly thought this was going to be a piece of cake. I had him surrounded on the first landing, and the majority of the trikes were landing hits. I thought that maybe he'd drop down to 50% health again before taking off. But you see, there's something to be said about forgetting shit so quickly, and I don't remember what it is. All I know is I don't like surprises, and I let out an audible sigh when I saw this shit. Seriously, this issue alone makes using trikes against the dragon hopeless unless each one has their own rider. We got the dragon down to about 33% health before I leapt from the saddle and died pantsless, as we all should, and snagged our first set of fails. Up next, we'd have our first alpha boss of the night with the ever hungry for man meat, the Broodmother. I fully expected to lose quite a few, if not all my trikes in this fight. If you've seen my first two Underdog boss battle episodes of the Yankee and the Carno, you'd know that we typically don't fare well with this fight. But we surrounded her ass against the pillar and laid an absolute ass whooping down on her. She switched targets frequently, and like we experienced with the beta Broodmother, the bulk of the damage came from the Ranios, even though she was dishing out some pretty hard hits, even with reduced damage with the trikes. We wound up losing about 4 trikes in this fight, but the majority of them took barely any damage. You could honestly probably beat her with about 15,000 health on the trikes. The Broodmother eventually went down, earning us another pass. For our final battle, I had little doubt in my mind. If you can beat the Broodmother, you can typically beat the MEAPpicus, and this also applies on all difficulties, including Alpha. This fight was incredibly easy, even though we lost a trike pretty early on. Once he was surrounded and started bouncing around to different targets, it was just a matter of time before he dropped. If the trikes didn't take so many points to get them to the stats that these ones have, then of course if they didn't have that charging issue against the dragon, then I would say that they're a pretty awesome alternative to use. Either way, the Broodmother and MEAPpicus were no match, and we earned our final pass. All the feedback has been fantastic, so please keep it up. I truly hope y'all have enjoyed this series so far. Please like and subscribe and let me know in the comments what other underdogs you'd like to see try this out. Your support is awesome. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.